I'd been driving for 14 hours straight when I pulled into the rest area off Interstate 70 near Salina, Kansas. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning, and I was running on fumes, both literally as my fuel tank was approaching empty, and metaphorically as my exhaustion had progressed from manageable to dangerous. I'd left St. Louis at noon the previous day with plans to reach Denver by evening, but I'd missed my exit near Kansas City and decided to just push through instead of backtracking. It was a decision that would change everything. The rest area was a classic American highway pit stop, a low, concrete structure with a peaked roof, surrounded by a parking lot that contained exactly 3 vehicles. A semi-truck at one end, parked and dark, a minivan with Minnesota plates somewhere in the middle, and my 2015 Honda CR-V, now taking up a spot near the building entrance. The March wind was brutal and cold, cutting through my jacket as I made my way across the parking lot. Tumbleweeds rolled past in the darkness. The sky above was so clear and starless looking that I could barely comprehend it, a vast empty black that seemed to press down on the earth with physical weight. I was alone out here. Genuinely alone in a way that doesn't exist in most of the country. The nearest town was Salina, about 20 miles away. The nearest anything else was even farther. I pushed through the glass doors into the rest area. The interior smelled like industrial cleaner and something else, something sweet and slightly rotten that I couldn't identify. The building was brightly lit with fluorescent lights that hummed with an intensity that made my head ache. There was a small gift shop to my left, closed and dark, a sitting area with vending machines straight ahead, and 2 hallways leading to the bathrooms, labeled men and women. There was one other person visible, a man behind the counter of what appeared to be a small convenience stand, watching a tiny television mounted on a bracket. He didn't look up as I entered. He looked like he hadn't looked up in hours, maybe days. I walked toward the men's bathroom, my footsteps echoing on the tile floor. The rest area felt wrong somehow. Too quiet, too still. The fluorescent lights seemed to be humming at a frequency that made my teeth ache. Even the air felt wrong, recycled and stale in a way that suggested the ventilation system hadn't been cleaned in years. The bathroom door was labeled in that institutional font, restrooms. I pushed it open. The interior was smaller than I expected. A short hallway with 4 stalls on the left and a long sink counter with 3 faucets on the right. The lights here were the same fluorescent hum, casting everything in that sickly pale glow. 2 of the stalls had their doors closed. 2 were open. And there, on the sink counter, were personal items. I registered them slowly, my exhausted brain struggling to process what I was seeing. A leather wallet, black and weathered. A set of car keys on a keychain shaped like a little airplane. A travel-sized bottle of cologne. A cell phone, screen dark. A pack of gum. And a watch. Just sitting there, casually arranged as if someone had emptied their pockets before using the stall. This wasn't unusual in itself. Men left things on counters in bathrooms all the time. Except that when I touched the wallet, it was warm. Not just warm, hot, as if it had been sitting in the sun, except we were indoors in a bathroom lit by fluorescent lights, in the middle of the night in Kansas in March. I picked up the watch. Still warm. The cologne bottle was warm. The phone was so hot it almost burned my fingers. I set them back down carefully like I was handling something alive. One of the stall doors was slightly ajar. I could see inside from where I stood, a toilet, ceramic and white and empty. The stall appeared to be unoccupied. I walked to the first open stall and looked inside. Empty. The second open stall was also empty. That left the 2 closed doors. "Hello," I called out. My voice sounded thin and weak in the fluorescent-lit bathroom. "Is anyone in here?" No response. I approached the first closed stall door. "Excuse me? I just need to use the bathroom." Still nothing. I was about to knock on the second stall when something made me hesitate. It was the same instinct that had kept me alive through 34 years of navigating the world. A sense that something wasn't right here. Something was profoundly, fundamentally wrong. I left the bathroom without using it. Back in the main area of the rest area, I made my way to the convenience stand. The man was still watching his television. Up close, I could see that he was older, probably in his 60s, with thin hair and the weathered face of someone who'd been working rest areas for too long. His name tag said Dale. "Excuse me," I said. "There's personal stuff left on the sink in the men's bathroom. A wallet, a phone, some other items. Did someone leave them there?" Dale didn't look away from the television. "People leave stuff all the time," he said, his voice rough and disinterested. "But it's hot," I said. "The items are hot. Like someone just set them down a minute ago." Now Dale did look at me. His eyes were empty, filmed over with a kind of tiredness that seemed to go beyond physical exhaustion. It was the look of someone who'd checked out of life a long time ago and was just going through the motions until the final curtain. "Did you look in the stalls?" he asked. "No," I said. "I didn't want to invade anyone's privacy." "Smart," he said and turned back to the television. "But if someone left their phone and wallet, shouldn't we?" "Kid," Dale interrupted, still not looking at me, "there are 3 stalls in that bathroom. 2 are always open. 1 is always closed. That's how it works. That's how it's always been." I felt something cold move down my spine. "What do you mean, always closed?" "Closed," Dale repeated flatly. "Don't worry about it. Just use the women's room if you need to. It's fine." "I'm a man," I said. "Then don't use the bathroom," Dale said. "Or use it. I don't care. But don't open the stall. Some things are better left alone." I should have left then. I should have just gotten back in my car, driven to the next rest area, or better yet, waited until I reached Selena where I could use the bathroom in a diner or a gas station where things made sense. But exhaustion and curiosity and the stubborn logic of a man who'd been driving for 14 hours without sleep made me do something stupid. I went back to the bathroom. This time I walked directly to the closed stall. The door was a standard bathroom stall door, gray metal with a stainless steel latch. I could see there was a gap at the bottom, just like every other bathroom stall, but I couldn't see inside past the metal. "I'm sorry," I called out. "I don't mean to be rude, but I really need to use the bathroom. Do you know how much longer you'll be?" No response. "Hello? Are you okay? Do you need help?" Still nothing. I reached out and knocked on the stall door. It was solid metal and my knock sounded loud in the small space. That's when I felt it. The warmth emanating from the stall. It was like standing in front of a space heater. The temperature inside that stall had to be significantly higher than the rest of the bathroom. I could feel heat waves coming from underneath the door. My heart was beating faster now. The exhaustion that had been fogging my thoughts cleared suddenly, burned away by adrenaline. "I'm opening the door," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm sorry, but I need to know that you're okay." I reached for the latch. The moment my fingers touched it, the heat intensified. It was so hot it felt like it might burn my skin. I yanked my hand back. "What is this?" I said, more to myself than to whoever, or whatever, was in the stall. I took a deep breath, steeled myself, and gripped the latch. The metal was so hot that I could only hold it for a second before having to let go. But that second was enough. The latch turned and the door swung inward. The stall was empty. I stared at it, unable to process what I was seeing. The stall was completely empty. No person. No source of heat. No explanation. Just a porcelain toilet, a metal wall, and empty space. But the heat was intense. It was like looking into an oven. The air shimmering with thermal distortion. I slammed the door closed and stumbled backward. My hands were shaking. My breathing was shallow and fast. I looked around the bathroom at the items still sitting on the counter. The warm wallet. The warm phone. The warm cologne. And I realized something that made my stomach turn. There was another stall door now. Or rather, a 4th stall where there had been 3 before. Or had there always been 4? I'd only counted 3 when I came in. I was certain of it. The warm items on the counter suddenly made sense. They weren't left by someone using the bathroom. They were left by someone leaving this bathroom. Someone who'd gone through that impossible door into that impossible space that was hot enough to warp the very air around it. I left the bathroom and walked directly to the convenience stand. "What's in that stall?" I demanded. Dale looked up from his television slowly, as if the question had required him to surface from a very deep place. In what stall? He asked. The one that's always closed. The hot one. What is it? I told you, Dale said. Some things are better left alone. That's not an answer, I said, and I heard the edge of hysteria in my voice. There's something in there. Something that's hot. Something that shouldn't exist. And those items on the counter, they belong to someone. Someone who went in there and didn't come back out. Where did they go? What is that place? Dale was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned off the television. The sudden silence was deafening. How long have you been driving? He asked. The question caught me off guard. What? I don't. About 14 hours. Since yesterday afternoon. You're tired, Dale said. I'm not tired enough to imagine things, I snapped. Aren't you? Dale said. He stood up and walked toward me. Up close, he looked even more worn down than before. His skin had a gray quality to it, like old paper. His eyes were the eyes of someone who'd seen things that had burned out some essential part of him. Let me tell you something, he said quietly. I've been working this rest area for 23 years. I've seen a lot of things. Most of them don't make sense if you've only been awake for 14 hours. Most of them make a lot more sense if you've been awake for 23 years straight. That's impossible, I said. So is a bathroom stall that's hot to the touch when there's nothing inside it, Dale replied. Impossible things happen in rest areas. They happen in gas stations. They happen in truck stops. They happen in places where the world is thin, where people are passing between one state and another, between tired and awake, between alive and... He paused. Whatever comes after. You're insane, I said. Probably, Dale agreed. But I'm also a man who's worked this same rest area for 23 years without leaving, without going home, without doing anything but watching the bathroom and the television and making sure nobody does anything stupid. Which means I know what's in that stall. And I know what happens if you open it. What? I demanded. What happens? You get warm, Dale said. Warmth is contagious. It transfers. The people who go in there, they're warm. Not hot. Warm. Like a living thing. Like a person. And the warmth is the last thing about them that's still alive, still human, still able to transfer from one place to another. When that warmth passes to you, you understand where they've gone. You understand what the stall is. And then you have to leave. Leave? I said. Leave the rest area? Leave everything, Dale said. You can't stay once you understand. You have to go back to your car and drive. You have to drive toward Denver or wherever it is you're going, but you're not really going there. You're going somewhere else. You're following the same road, but it's a different road. A road that doesn't exist. A road that takes you to places that aren't on any map. I stared at him. You're completely insane. Probably, Dale repeated. But you felt the heat. You saw the items. You know something's wrong. And now you're going to have to make a choice. What choice? I asked. You can leave right now, Dale said. Get back in your car, drive to the next rest area, and try to convince yourself that this never happened. Most people do that. They convince themselves. And they're fine. They get to Denver or wherever. They go back to their lives. But they always remember this place. They always have a moment late at night when they think about what they saw and what it meant. Or, I said. Or, Dale said, you can go back to the bathroom and find out what's really happening here. You can open that door again and actually look inside. And then you'll understand everything. And then I'll have to drive on that impossible road, I said. Yes, Dale said. That's not a choice, I said. That's a threat. It's the world, Dale said. Some places are thin. Some places let things through. Some places are between places. This rest area is one of them. And the longer you're here, the more you're going to start to understand. The more the world is going to feel wrong. So you either leave now, get back in your car and drive away and never look back, or you go back there and finish this. I left the rest area building and walked back to my car. I got inside, locked the doors, and sat in the darkness trying to think. The rational explanation was obvious. I was exhausted. 14 hours of driving, dehydration, hunger, the sensory deprivation of highway driving, it all added up to hallucination. The items on the counter weren't warm. my perception of temperature was skewed. The stall wasn't hot. I'd imagined the heat because my mind was expecting something strange. Dale wasn't real, he was some kind of hypnagogic manifestation, the kind of thing that happens when you're this tired. But I'd touched the items. I'd felt the latch. I'd seen the door open. I was still sitting in my car, engine off, hands shaking, when the minivan pulled out of its parking space. I watched it drive away toward the on-ramp. A family of 5, probably heading toward Denver for a vacation or a funeral or to visit relatives. They'd stopped at this rest area, used the bathrooms, refilled their drinks, and continued on with their lives. For them, this was just another pit stop on a long drive. Unless they'd opened the wrong door. I thought about the items on the counter. The wallet, the watch, the cologne, the phone. Someone had taken them out of their pockets before going into that stall. Someone who was very organized. Someone methodical. Someone who knew they weren't coming back. Unless they thought they were. Unless they thought they were just using the bathroom. I got out of my car and walked back into the rest area. Dale was exactly where I'd left him, watching his television. He didn't seem surprised to see me back. "You're going in?" he said. It wasn't a question. "I want to see the items," I said. "The ones on the counter." "Okay," Dale said. He didn't try to stop me. I walked back to the bathroom. The items were still there, still warm. I picked up the wallet and opened it. There was a driver's license inside. A man named Robert Chin, age 42, from Denver, Colorado. The photo showed a man with kind eyes and a small smile. On the back of the wallet were several credit cards, all in the same name. There was cash, $217. There were family photos. A woman who was probably his wife, 2 teenage kids who were probably his children. I opened the cell phone. It required a password, which I didn't have. But the lock screen showed the same family. They were all smiling at the camera. They looked happy. Normal. Real. The watch was a decent quality Timex, the kind of practical watch that a normal man wears to work every day. The cologne was a department store brand, nothing fancy. The gum was a pack of spearmint, half empty. All of these items belonged to Robert Chin. And Robert Chin had left them here and walked into the impossible stall. I set the items back on the counter very carefully. "How many?" I asked. My voice was quiet. "How many what?" Dale replied from the main area. "How many people?" I called back. "How many people have opened that door?" Dale didn't answer for a long time. Then he appeared in the bathroom doorway. "Hundreds," he said. "Maybe thousands. I've been here for 23 years. On average, one person every 2 weeks finds out about the stall. Sometimes more. Sometimes less. It depends on the phase of the moon or the season or something I don't understand. But it's always happening. And they all just go through the door?" "Not right away," Dale said. "Some of them leave. Some of them drive away and never come back. Some of them call the authorities, report a missing person, and then realize they can't explain what they're reporting." "What did you see? A hot stall? Nothing else? How are they supposed to investigate that?" "But some of them go through," I said. "Some of them do," Dale confirmed. "And once they understand what's happening, they can't leave. The warmth becomes part of them. They follow the road that doesn't exist. They end up somewhere else." "Where?" I asked. "Where do they go?" "I don't know," Dale said, and he looked genuinely sad when he said it. "I've never opened the door myself. I'm the guardian. I watch and I wait and I make sure the items are laid out properly for the next person. I've been here so long that I'm not sure I'm capable of leaving anymore. But the ones who go through, I imagine they go where they need to go. I imagine it's not a bad place. The warmth is usually a sign of life, of comfort. Maybe they're not suffering." "You're saying this is some kind of transportation system?" I said incredulously. "A rest area that moves people to other places?" "I'm saying that the world is stranger than you think," Dale said. "And I'm saying that rest areas and gas stations and truck stops are the thinnest places. They're liminal spaces. They exist between other places, between home and work, between one state and another, between the known world and whatever comes after. Things accumulate in liminal spaces. Things slip through. And sometimes people slip through with them. I stared at him. You're absolutely insane. I know, Dale said. He didn't seem bothered by this fact. But you're going to open that door again, aren't you? I wanted to say no. I wanted to get back in my car and drive away and try to convince myself that none of this was real. But the truth was I was going to open that door. I had to, because I'd felt the warmth. I'd seen the evidence, and I needed to understand. When I do, I said, when I go through, what happens to my car? My life? The people expecting me in Denver? Your car stays here, Dale said. Eventually, someone from the authorities comes and impounds it. Your family files a missing person report that goes nowhere. The world moves on. But you, wherever you are, you're fine. You're warm. You're safe. You're exactly where you need to be. That's not an answer, I said. It's the only answer I have, Dale said. I approached the stall slowly this time. I wasn't going to rush it. I was going to look carefully, see if I could find any explanation. Some kind of ventilation system that was misdirected. Some kind of space heater. Some rational explanation for the heat. I reached out and pulled the door open. The stall was still empty. The toilet was still porcelain and white. The walls were still metal and tile. But the heat was overwhelming now. It was like standing in front of an open oven door, except it was worse than that. It was like standing inside a blast furnace. The air shimmered. The edges of things wavered. And in the center of the stall, directly above the toilet, there was something new. Something I hadn't seen before. It was light. Not a light. Not a lamp or a bulb or anything with a clear source. It was light itself, floating in the space like a presence. It was warm light, golden and amber, the color of late afternoon sun on a summer day. It pulsed gently like a heartbeat, like something alive. And as I watched, it pulsed again and I felt it calling to me. I understood in that moment what Dale meant about the warmth being contagious. The light was warmth made visible, and it was seeping out of the stall and surrounding me. I could feel it on my skin. I could feel it inside my chest, warming me from the inside out. It was calling me toward the toilet. Not with words, but with a feeling. The feeling of home. The feeling of rest. The feeling of finally arriving after a long journey. I took a step forward. Wait, Dale said. I turned. He was standing in the bathroom doorway, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked alive. His eyes had color in them. His face had warmth. He looked like someone who'd just woken up from a very long sleep. Before you go, he said, there's something you should know. Something I should tell you because I'm the guardian and it's my job to tell people this. What? I asked. The warmth isn't transportation, he said. Not exactly. The people who go through the door, they don't end up in Denver or New York or wherever else is on the road. They end up in other rest areas. Different ones. Rest areas that don't exist on maps. Rest areas that are always between places. And some of them become guardians like I did. Some of them find the stalls and the warm items and someone to take their place. I understood what he was saying. You want me to replace you? Yes, he said. I've been here for 23 years. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to feel that warmth. And you're the next one. The one who understands. The one who can watch the bathroom and make sure the items are laid out properly and tell the next person what's happening. No, I said. No, I'm not staying here. I'm going through that door. You will go through, Dale said. But it won't take you where you think it will. It will take you to another rest area. And eventually, someone will come to you and ask for answers. And you'll have to choose between going through your door or staying to warn them. And you'll choose to stay. Because that's what guardians do. That's what the warmth requires. Then I won't go through the door, I said. I turned away from the stall, away from the light, away from the warmth. I'm leaving. I'm getting in my car and driving away from this place. Okay, Dale said, and he stepped aside. I walked past him toward the bathroom exit. Behind me, I heard him say, "Your car won't start." I didn't stop walking. I went back to the rest area lobby, back outside into the cold Kansas night. The wind was still brutal. The stars were still impossibly absent from the black sky. I got into my CRV, turned the key in the ignition, and the engine refused to turn over. Again. Nothing. A third time. The engine was completely dead. I sat in the dark car and understood. The choice had been made. Not by me. By the rest area itself. The world was thin here and it wanted what it wanted. I got out and walked back to the building. Dale was waiting for me just inside the door. He was smiling. It was the first time I'd seen him smile, and his teeth were too white, too perfect, like they belonged to someone much younger. "The light is for you," he said. "It's warmer now that you've accepted it." I didn't say anything. I walked back to the bathroom. The stall door was open as if waiting for me. The light was still pulsing, still calling. I could feel its warmth from across the room. "Before I go," I said, turning back to Dale one more time, "what do I do about Robert Chin? What do I tell his family?" "Nothing," Dale said. "They'll report him missing. The authorities will find his car. They'll search for him. And eventually they'll assume he's dead. That's the only explanation that makes sense to them. But he's not dead. He's here. Or he's in another rest area. Or he's somewhere else entirely. And eventually he'll either come to accept it, or he'll open his door and go to the next place." I turned and walked to the stall. The light reached out for me like a living thing. I could feel its warmth spreading through my body, traveling through my veins like blood. I stepped closer. The temperature increased. The light pulsed faster. I reached out and my hand passed into the light. The sensation was indescribable. It was warmth and comfort and home and love and every good feeling I'd ever experienced, concentrated into a single touch. Tears ran down my face. I stepped forward again. The world blurred. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the bathroom of a rest area very much like the one I just left, but different in subtle ways. The tile was a different shade of beige. The sink had 4 faucets instead of 3. The lights hummed at a slightly different frequency. There were items on the counter. A set of car keys, a pair of reading glasses, a wedding ring, a compact mirror, and a smartphone. I knew what these items meant. I knew what I would find if I checked the stall. But first, I walked out to the main area of the rest area. A man was sitting at the convenience stand, watching a television mounted on a bracket. He was older, with worn features and empty eyes. He looked at me without recognition, then returned his attention to the screen. I understood. He was still a guardian, but he was fading. He was approaching the point where he could let go, where he could open his door. I walked back to the bathroom and picked up the items. A man named Michael Torres, age 56, from Phoenix, Arizona. A family man. Someone with a wedding ring and a life that he'd left behind. I laid the items out in a neat row on the counter, the way Dale had taught me. The way I somehow knew was right. Then I waited. It wasn't long before a woman came through the bathroom door. She was exhausted, the kind of exhausted that comes from 16 hours of driving. She had the look of someone who'd been running from something or toward something or both. She saw the items and froze. "Excuse me," she said, looking at me. "Can you explain what?" "The stall," I said, pointing, "is always closed. The items are always warm. And if you open the door, you'll see light. Warmth. Something that's calling to you." She stared at me. "Are you threatening me?" "No," I said. "I'm warning you. And I'm offering you a choice. You can leave right now. Get back in your car and drive to the next rest area and try to convince yourself this never happened. Or you can open that door and find out what's really happening here." "Where are you?" the woman asked. "What is this place?" "This is a rest area," I said. "And I'm the guardian. I've been here for—" I paused, checking something in my mind that I didn't have access to before, something that had come with the warmth. 47 days. You can take my place if you want, or you can go through the door. But you have to choose. The woman walked backward toward the bathroom exit. "I'm leaving," she said. "I'm getting out of here." "Your car won't start," I said. She stopped. She looked at me with fear in her eyes. "Go to the stall," I said. "The light is for you. It's always for the ones who understand." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she turned and walked back into the bathroom. I heard the door to the stall open. I heard her gasp. After a few moments, I heard her step through the light. The stall door swung shut behind her. I collected her items and arranged them on the counter. A wallet, a set of car keys, a phone, a pair of sunglasses, and a tube of lip balm. Then I walked back to the main area and sat down beside the old guardian. I picked up the television remote and changed the channel. We sat in silence, watching a show that had been canceled for 20 years, on a television that received stations that didn't exist. And I understood in that moment what Dale had meant about warmth being contagious. The warmth wasn't in my body anymore. It had transferred to the items on the counter. It was waiting for the next person. It was always waiting. Days passed, or what felt like days. Time moved strangely in the rest area. The television always showed canceled shows. The clock on the wall never advanced. But people came. Not every hour, but regularly. Every few days, another person would come through that bathroom door, confused and exhausted from their drive. I would show them the warm items. I would explain that they had a choice. Some of them left. Their cars would improbably start as soon as they accepted the choice. They would drive away from the rest area toward the next one. I didn't know what they'd find there, whether they'd be haunted by the memory or if they'd convinced themselves it had been a hallucination. But most of them opened the door. Most of them felt the warmth. Most of them stepped into the light. And I stayed. The old guardian eventually stopped coming to the convenience stand. One day I realized he was gone. He'd either gone through his door or he'd somehow left the rest area completely. Either way, I was alone with the items and the television and the knowledge of what would happen next. A new guardian would eventually take my place. Or I would eventually become tired enough to open my own door and see where it led. And someone else would be left behind to wait and watch and guide the next lost travelers through their impossible choice. I thought about Robert Chin a lot. About his family in Denver. About the fact that he was probably in another rest area right now, watching items on a counter, waiting for someone new to arrive. Or maybe he'd already become a guardian. Maybe he was sitting in some impossible bathroom, waiting for the warmth to spread to him. I thought about the woman I'd sent through. I wondered where she was now. I thought about Dale, who'd sent me through in his place. And I thought about my life before the rest area. My car. My home. My mother, who was probably looking for me by now. My job, my friends, my plans. All of that seemed very far away. Very unreal. Like a dream I'd had a long time ago. The warmth was the only thing that felt real now. It took me a long time to understand what the rest areas really were. They weren't transportation systems or supernatural prisons or punishment for some cosmic crime. They were something stranger than that. They were places where the world was thin. Where the boundary between the living and whatever came after had grown permeable. Where tired people, people whose consciousness was already partially fractured by exhaustion, could slip through into spaces that ran parallel to the normal world. The rest areas existed in the exhaustion. They fed on it. They grew from it. And the warmth was the mechanism by which that exhaustion, that liminal state between sleep and waking, between one place and another, was transferred from person to person. I understood this the way you understand things in dreams. Not through logic, but through a kind of deep, intuitive knowledge that bypassed language entirely. And I understood something else. The rest areas were necessary. They were a kind of safety valve. A place for people whose consciousness had become too fractured to continue in the normal world. A place where they could transition safely into whatever came next, rather than having some kind of catastrophic breakdown on the road, crashing their cars, killing themselves and others in the process. We were doing mercy work. Every time we sent someone through the light, we were saving them from something worse. I almost believed it. For months after I arrived, something unusual happened. A man came through the bathroom door, and instead of looking tired, instead of looking confused, he looked familiar. It took me a moment to place him. Robert Chin. He was holding items in his hands. A wallet, a phone, a watch, a pack of gum, a bottle of cologne. "I came to take your place," he said. "The warmth sent me. It's ready for you now." I should have felt grateful. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt something close to panic. "How long have you been here?" I asked. "I don't know," Robert said. "How long have you been here?" "For months," I said. "But for you?" "Time is different," Robert said. "For me it felt like longer. Or shorter. I can't quite remember now. But I understand what happens here now. I understand the work. And the warmth says it's your turn to go through." I stared at him. "The warmth talks to you?" It talks to all of us, Robert said. After a while. Once you've been here long enough, once you've sent enough people through, it starts to speak. Not in words, but in feelings, in knowing. And it's been telling me that your time is almost up, that you're ready, that the next person who comes through that door will take your place and then you can go. Go where? I asked, though I thought I already knew the answer. Through your door, Robert said. There's one in the stall now. A light. Warmth. All for you. You can feel it, can't you? The calling? I could. God help me, I could. The warmth had been building for weeks now. At first, it had been concentrated in the items on the counter, in the transfer from person to person. But now it was spreading through the entire rest area. Through the walls. Through the air. It was calling to me with a voice that sounded like home, like rest, like everything I'd ever wanted. How many? I asked. How many rest areas are there? Hundreds, Robert said. Thousands. More than that. Everywhere there's a thin place, everywhere the normal world borders on the impossible, there's a rest area. And they're all connected. They all feed each other. They're all part of the same system. What system? I demanded. The system for processing the exhausted, Robert said simply. For moving people from the world of the living to whatever comes next. It's not malicious. It's just necessary. People get tired. Some people get so tired that their consciousness splits. And if we don't catch them, if we don't move them through, they become something dangerous. They become the kind of accidents that cause other people to become exhausted enough to end up here. It was beginning to make a terrible kind of sense. I thought about all the inexplicable car accidents I'd ever heard about. The drivers found at the wheel of cars that had gone off the road for no apparent reason. The pileups caused by a single driver who'd simply lost consciousness at the wheel. All of those people had probably been exhausted. All of them had probably been approaching the breaking point where consciousness fractures. And some of them had probably found rest areas like this one. I don't want to go, I said. I want to stay. I want to continue the work. You can't, Robert said. The work consumes you. It takes a little bit of your consciousness each time. Eventually, there's not enough of you left to continue. So you go through and you become something else. You become part of the warmth itself. And you help guide the next people from beyond. I thought about this. I thought about the items on the counter. I'd never considered before that the warmth might be made of people. That every person who'd gone through the light had become part of the mechanism that pulled in the next person. And if I don't go? I asked. If I refuse to open my door? What happens? Then you stay, Robert said. You become a guardian forever. You watch the items on the counter. You guide people through. You fade more and more. Until eventually you're not really a person anymore. You're just another rest area. Another thin place. Another way station for the exhausted. That's already happening to me, isn't it? I said. I can feel it. I'm not quite real anymore. I'm like Dale was. Like you are now. Yes, Robert said. It happens. That's why there's a light in the stall. That's why the warmth is calling. It's a mercy. A way out before you fade completely. I walked past him toward the bathroom. The stall door was open as I'd known it would be. The light was there, warm and golden, and calling to me with a voice that sounded like every good feeling I'd ever experienced combined into a single moment. But before I stepped through, I looked back at Robert. Tell me, I said, in all the time you've been here, have you ever met anyone from before? Anyone who's actually died? As in genuinely physically dead? Or are all of us here just exhausted? I don't know, Robert said. I can't remember anymore. I can't remember what death feels like. Can you? I couldn't. I tried to remember the moment of my car accident, the impact, the pain. But those memories were foggy now, distant, as if they'd happened to someone else. I think, Robert said slowly, that maybe those things are the same. Maybe exhaustion and death are the same process, just experienced from different angles. Maybe the rest areas are for people who die gradually instead of all at once. Who slip away in increments rather than in one final moment. I turned to the light. Will I see people I knew? I asked. Will I recognize anything on the other side? I don't think so, Robert said. But that might be okay. Recognition requires consciousness, and consciousness is what causes the exhaustion in the first place. I stepped into the light. I don't know how much time has passed. Time moves differently now. I exist in a state that isn't quite being and isn't quite not being. I'm the warmth, and the warmth is me, and we're distributed across hundreds of rest areas in hundreds of different states and provinces and countries. When a person enters a rest area exhausted, I feel them. When they touch the warm items on the counter, I know their name, their story, their breaking point. I guide them gently toward the door. Some of them resist. Some of them try to leave. But eventually, most of them understand. And when they step into the light, I absorb them. I take their exhaustion, their consciousness, their fractured awareness, and I incorporate it into myself. And they become part of me. Robert is still there at the Kansas rest area, still the guardian, still waiting for the next person to arrive. He's fading now, becoming transparent, the way all guardians do eventually. In another few months or weeks or years, someone will arrive, and he'll hand them the items and explain the choice, and then he'll open his door and come through. And then there will be another guardian, and another, and another. The rest areas continue their work. Thousands of them stretched across the continent like a vast, invisible network, catching the exhausted before they can crash, guiding them through, converting them into warmth that can guide the next person. It's not a bad existence. In fact, it's not an existence at all. It's something beyond existence. It's a state of being that doesn't require the burden of consciousness. It doesn't require the exhaustion that consciousness creates. But sometimes, rarely and from a vast distance, I remember what it was like to be singular, to be a person, to have a name and a family and a destination. And I feel something that might be sadness or might be regret or might be something that doesn't have a name because it belongs to a state of being that language can't quite describe. And then I fade back into the warmth, and the feeling fades with me, and I'm just the heat in the items on the counter, just the calling in the stall door, just the light waiting for the next exhausted traveler to arrive, just the system continuing its work. And somewhere on a highway in Kansas or Ohio or Colorado or any of the 1,000 other places, a tired driver checks the rest area bathroom and finds personal items that are still warm. And they face the choice. And most of them eventually step through.